On September 12th, rapper PnB Rock was robbed and murdered. Let's go ahead and get into the details. My name is Jamahl Kersey. I'm the principal attorney at Kersey Law, a boutique criminal defense firm in San Diego, California. And in this video, we're talking about rapper PnB Rock, who was murdered and robbed in LA. And so, first things first, I just want to say rest in peace to PnB Rock. My heart goes out to his family and loved ones and friends. This has to be a very difficult time for all of them. So, my thoughts and prayers go out to you. But yeah, Rakim Allen, that was his real name. Rakim Allen was born in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And on September 12th, that was his final days. He had gone out to Roscoe's Chicken and Waffles. He was with his girlfriend. And apparently she had posted a picture of, their food and had done the geotag. So basically, when you tag certain places, when you put the name of certain places, it can then track, where you're posting from. And so apparently the individual who ended up going on to enter the establishment, so enter the Roscoe's Chicken and Waffles, basically demanded his jewelry and other belongings of his. And even after being able to take those items, proceeded to shoot him multiple times, and he ultimately succumbed to his wounds and died on that same day. This is a difficult situation. There's a lot of blame going around, a lot of opinions going around as far as what could PnB Rock have done in order to avoid this having happened. What could his girl have done in order to avoid having this happen? And so, the first thing is, we can't be placing blame on everybody else. The person who decided to rob and kill this individual has all the blame, right? So we're not excusing that individual for, any of his actions. And we'll talk a little later on about what he might be looking at. And, focusing on the girlfriend, one of the interesting things that has been kind of going around in the discussion is her having posted this location. So PnB Rock obviously is a famous individual. These people, even though, they're out in the streets, they're taking pictures, they're on social media, they don't necessarily want their locations out for the world to see, just to be able to avoid, whether that's fans just wanting to be able to be out and have a meal without being, hounded by fans, maybe hounded by paparazzi. But, at the end of the day, you try and have as much privacy as you possibly can, given the circumstances. And so apparently the girlfriend had a tendency to, drop pins or drop the location. And this was something that was the topic of, heated arguments between PnB Rock and his girl. Basically him saying, stop posting our location. I don't want people knowing where I'm at. I don't want people knowing where I'm moving. She apparently has 500,000 followers on Instagram. And so in that situation, you have a fair amount of people who are going to be made aware of, one's whereabouts. And so that was a problem. And so apparently he had actually taken her page down or blocked her or did something to where she couldn't post for, 6 months. And it happened to be, the very day that he had given her account back. Then the next day is when she ended up posting the location at this Roscoe's, and, we know what happened from there. And so I think it's, it's really unfair to pile on at this time. She's already going through more than enough, having witnessed her boyfriend ending up getting taken out. That's just hard enough to have to go through versus having the whole internet pile on her and blaming her for a situation. Yes. I mean, could you say that had she not posted his location, might PnB Rock still be with us? Yes, that's a possibility. But to use that to blame her, I just think is really unfair. One of the other issues that are coming out are whether he should have that type of jewelry on, just moving around through hoods or moving around through regular neighborhoods. Listen, we're still feeling the after effects of a global pandemic. Many people lost their jobs. Many people, if they already were in a messed up position, they continue to be. And there's always going to be people who are struggling, regardless of what the economy is looking like. There are going to be people who are struggling, and there are going to be people who are up to no good. And so when you wear these type of things, whether it's, diamond chains, gold chains, platinum, whatever it is that's going to, call out attention, you really, in my opinion, I just don't think that you should be wearing that type of jewelry without having security present. It's just bringing unnecessary attention to you. And if you don't have, a squad who's prepared and trained to handle these type of situations, you are really putting yourself out to, potentially be attacked in this way. And had he had a security team around him, this might have been a tragedy that would have been avoided. But unfortunately, it sounds like it was just him and his girlfriend moving out, moving through the city of LA. And this is what ended up happening. And so, again, it almost feels unfair to even be, going through this analysis. But this case is out here, and people want to hear, legal analysis. People want to hear a breakdown from a criminal defense attorney. And so here I'm putting this information out there. So, again, if you're moving around with this type of jewelry, I would like to think that a person would have security in order to avoid situations like this. But really, as far as I understand, the police, they're doing their investigation. Whenever you have a homicide like this and it's at local businesses, and remember, this thing happened just in the middle of the day, which makes it all the more scary that, a lot of times you think these things happen at night, but just in the middle of the day, this ended up occurring. So, but anyway, the police are going to be going around and, seeing if anybody saw anything, asking probably the people who worked at Roscoe. So, your servers, your greeters, whoever. They're going to be asking them. They're going to be looking at surveillance video. Apparently, this guy was wearing a mask, so that makes identification a lot more difficult. But one of the other things that they might be able to do is go to local businesses, get surveillance, get video from surveillance cameras from neighboring businesses. Perhaps, rolling up, he might not have had the mask on yet and then put it on right before going in. But it's my understanding that, they don't really even have a description that they've put out. They have very little information to go on in terms of trying to catch this individual. But ultimately, if they do catch him, he's going to be charged with armed robbery, first-degree murder, and use of a firearm. And so realistically, in this situation with those charges, that's likely something that if he ends up getting caught, he'll probably end up spending the rest of his life in prison. And so the reality is this case, it has some parallels to the Nipsey Hussle murder, right? So, obviously Nipsey Hussle is a rapper, PnB Rock is a rapper, but when we look at just the, out in the open, whether that's in a restaurant or in a parking lot of an individual coming up to someone else and just basically shooting them, and killing them is what we have in this situation. And so once, if he gets caught, he gets arrested, he gets charged with these crimes, what'll end up happening is the DA will eventually get over to his defense counsel, all of the evidence that they believe points to his guilt, and any evidence that, might point to his innocence, if any exists. It's hard to imagine that there's really going to be much that would point to his innocence. But in a case like this, where you have major charges, when you're talking about a first-degree murder, a lot of times, so in other cases, anything sort of short of murder, the DA is going to make an offer, right? So they're going to make an offer where if the person pleads guilty, they'll be facing less time than if they go to trial and get found guilty. But in a case like this, the DA won't even make an offer. So the defense has to come to the DA with an offer. And the reality is that offer is going to have to be, somewhere in the neighborhood of probably, upper 40 or 50 years. Anything short of that, the DA just is not going to accept. And that is really hard for a defense attorney to sit down with their client, especially if this guy has no criminal history. Again, we don't know who he is, but if he has no criminal history, even if he does have criminal history, it's still going to be hard for his defense attorney to say, hey, are you willing to sign a 48-year, a 50-year deal? And since that's likely going to be rejected, then it'll be a case that ends up having to go to trial. Right. And so a person, they can only be found guilty because, remember, the presumption of innocence, a person is innocent unless and until they're proven guilty. And so that's either by way of a person admitting guilt and, signing a change of plea form and admitting guilt, or going to trial and being found guilty at trial. And so if this case ends up going to trial, you'll get a lot of those same questions, like, why are we even going to trial in this case? It's clear, that this guy came up to PnB Rock, grabbed his chain, grabbed whatever, other belongings, and then proceeded to shoot him. People are going to be like, why are we, even going to trial? And so that will end up being the reason, because, they're not able to come to an agreement. The district attorney is not going to make an offer. The defendant in this case is probably not going to want to take just a 50-year offer. So it'll end up being a case that ends up having to go to trial. But it's just, a very heartbreaking, tragic situation all around. We've just seen too much of this. We saw young Dolph, go back to his hood and, just going to get a bag of cookies and getting shot up. You had, Brooklyn's own Pop Smoke, up and coming, very talented dude on his way to just, who knows where he could have gone. And, kind of in the same light in terms of posting locations or posting pics that have information regarding a location. If you remember, I think he posted some sort of gift bag and the tag had an address on it. And so, people ultimately went to that location, and that's where Pop Smoke was killed. It really is difficult to know just how cheap life can be, right? So just over, a gold chain, a diamond chain, money, how some people can place such a high value on these things that they'd be willing to take a person's life. It's just heartbreaking all around. And again, I just, thoughts and prayers to his friends, family, and loved ones. Definitely want to wish them peace and comfort in these difficult times. But that's enough for this story for now. If you got something out of this, please show me some love and hit the like button. Make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn on those notifications so you never miss a new video when it drops. As always, I want to thank you so much for watching. Until next time, peace.